Maybe this is a good story for aspiring screenwriters out there. When I went to work with Michael McDowell on Beetlejuice, we had been working for a couple of weeks, and he sat down with me and he said, "Larry, this is not working out. This is not happening." And I was taken aback, and I said, "Why? What do you mean?" He said, "Because you're just sitting around waiting for inspiration. And I don't work like that. I'm not going to sit around waiting for you to be inspired. If you're going to work with me," and Michael was as professional writer as I had ever met. He had published, I don't know, 19, 20 novels, horror novels, great genre novels. He had written for a show called Tales from the Dark Side. He was the real deal. And not a person to hold back his feelings. Okay. And again, he said to me, "This is just not happening." And he said, and this changed my life as a writer. He said, "If you're going to work with me, look at it like we're working in a bank. We get in at 9, we have a cup of coffee, we say good morning, then we go to work. And we write until lunch, we go have our lunch, we come back, we write again till around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we fold up the writing, we return whatever phone calls, whatever business of writing we have to do, and we do this 5-6 days a week. And it's a job. It's not you sitting with a metaphorical beret in a metaphorical loft waiting for inspiration to strike. It's a job. And it was a bit of tough love, and it took me aback. And I was, I suppose, a tiny bit offended. But then the thing he said to me that sealed the deal, because when I was working at Paramount, I was writing script notes. Again, it was like a 16-hour day often, and probably 14 of those hours a day was writing script notes. And he said, "Larry, you've told me you've written hundreds of pages of notes for other people's scripts. Why can't you do it for yourself?" And I was like, wow, okay, I will try it your way. And it changed my perception of who a writer is, what a writer does, and it changed my work habits, and it changed everything. And I did it his way, and I took all of that, and he was absolutely right. All of that discipline that I'd put into other people's work, I started putting into my work, our work. And Beetlejuice came out of that. And as crazy and as far out as that movie is, the script was written in a very disciplined way, because that was the way Michael needed to work. When I decided I was going to be a writer again, and decided I was going to do it with Michael, in my mind I said to myself, "Oh, sounds so awful, maybe, but I'm going to write a classic.
Oh.
I'm not just going to write another movie. We are going to create a classic." And who knows what that means? And again, it sounds obnoxious maybe, but we knew probably, I don't know, 20 some pages in, that just something was happening. And we weren't thinking about demographics. We weren't thinking about who the audience was going to be. We weren't thinking about any quote-unquote commercial aspects of it. We were thinking what's good, what's funny, what's making us laugh, what's moving the story forward, what are the zaniest, craziest ideas we can have. And it happens with scripts, and it happens in your writing. There's just times that you feel that you're in a zone and you're in a place that you're so connecting with yourself, and you're so connecting with what your vision is that if you can get it on a page, other people are going to see it and feel it too. And that movie was that. And we didn't know what was going to happen with it. When the movie was finished, there were people at Warner Brothers in the marketing department who absolutely hated it. They wanted to change the title to House Ghost and dump it. And back in the days when you'd put it in 1,000 theaters or something and let it run a week and then hopefully it would go away. That wasn't everyone. And we had David Geffen on our side, so we were protected. But it was hardly loved. But I knew who we were writing it for, and in my mind, this is a very 80s reference. There was a band, there's still a band, The Cure, the great Cure, band I loved. Mm-hmm. And I had gone to see them at the Rose Bowl, huge concert, maybe 50,000 people. Nice. And it felt to me like it was 50,000 teenage girls in black. Right?
I was probably one of them,
you know,
yeah.
right,
I
you know,
was yeah.
and that was, and the Winona Ryder character Lydia came out of that. And I always thought that's who the audience for this movie is. And as we were writing it, and I that for me, and it may have been different for Michael, but that was always who I thought this movie was being written for. And it's really a family story, and it's about a girl who needs a mom and a dad, and because her real mom and dad just don't understand her and don't spend enough time with her, so she ends up with two ghosts. That's the heart of that movie, and that's what I was writing towards. And so finally it's released, and I go to see it nearby where we're sitting now at Universal on a Friday night. It's the first Friday night, and I watch it with an audience, a real audience for the first time. Of course, there have been some test audiences and all of that, and people are coming out of it either loving it or hating it, which I thought, great. That's exactly what we wanted. And that was Friday night. Then Saturday night, I went back and I saw a bunch of teenage girls who had gone into their closet, having seen it on Friday night, and came back dressed like Winona Ryder, Lydia Deetz. And I thought, okay, it's a hit. We have connected with the audience to the point that they're already dressing up as Lydia. And then there was a marketing meeting at Warner Brothers. It may have been on the Monday, and it had surpassed everyone's expectations in terms of the grosses and the audience feedback. And it was obvious that it was going to take off and be something special. And again, in this no-name zone, that's
what I was wondering about Mr. No-Name.
There was a marketing person who I always remember as a guy who would wear a scarf no matter what the temperature was. Okay, and it was I remember Tim Burton being there and David Geffen being there and the Michaels and myself, and this marketing person. The best he could do was, well, at least we got the little girls in black to come see it. And we walked out of the meeting, and Tim said, well, who the F did we think he made it for? Yeah, who did he think we made it for? And it was just, and when things are going well in my writing, and I think it's true for all writers, that if you're like intensely self-conscious about who is your audience, who is it, is this for the 12 to 16-year-old? If you're doing that, you're not writing well. And you get in a zone and your story starts telling you. You're not telling the story, it's emerging from someplace within you. And that's what Beetlejuice was. And I just always had to, and I used to say to Michael sometimes, because I could feel it going well, and I'd say, Michael, you know we're going to have a toy line. And he'd go, shut up, let's just finish the script, you know.
Right.
But I mean, it's a very hard thing to explain it's an epiphany after an epiphany, and that you feel like you're just onto something bigger than you, you know. What that story is, and you know, it's not that cliche, write what you know, because I've never written what I quote unquote know. I write fantastical worlds and supernatural stories and all of that. But write what you feel, and write what's in your heart, and write something that means something to you. And you know, I was a script reader for, God, probably a decade, and I was reading 7-8 scripts a week, and the rare one was the great script. And when you found that, that was a very exciting day at the office. And sometimes the really terrible scripts were they were fun because they were so god-awful. But the ones that got really exhausting and really enervating as a script reader who's sitting there and has to read a script, synopsize it, write a comment about it, then pick up another one and read it, and were the ones that you could tell were written by people who were looking at what last year's hit was and trying to imitate it. And those were deadly. And they weren't good, they weren't bad, they were safe and mediocre. And any writer, any young writer, any old writer, anyone who's just starting to write anything, write something that you feel. Write something that comes from the heart. And people may not think that Beetlejuice is a personal movie. It's an intensely personal movie. It was intensely personal for Michael and me. And you know, I didn't know I had a theme until I had enough work to realize I had a theme. And almost everything I've written are about broken families who are put back together in some bizarre way. But because I came from a broken family, I like to think that my work has a sense of heart and a sense of compassion and a sense of humanity in it, no matter how bizarre it is, no matter how weird the worlds get. And you got to write something that you feel and something that you have some passion for, or just why do it? It's too hard. It's just it's not an easy job, and I personally can't imagine saying, well, this was a hit. Now, so I'm gonna write my version of that. It's not really what I care about, what I feel, but I can imitate it well enough. I can't imagine spending a year of your life doing that, but people do it all the time. And they usually write mediocre scripts. There's an idea. And usually what I know is Beetlejuice, for instance, the idea was that I discussed with my partners, a psychedelic ghost comedy. We had no idea what that meant, but it rolled off the tongue, right? And I usually have something of an idea like that, and I kind of know the beginning, and I kind of know the end. The middle is the great unknown. But it's an instinct and an idea, and sometimes it's a character, and sometimes it's a situation. But it's very internal at first. And yes, there's times where you write on assignment, you know, and you're given an idea and say, translate this into a movie. But in terms of my own writing, if you will, my personal writing, it usually comes from just the most basic kind of idea and a feeling. you know, and it's like, and I can't articulate it very well. I'm sorry, because it's hard to articulate. But it's just kind of like again, like a situation or a character that's just kind of waiting to come out. And then whatever your process is, and boy do you need a process, and boy do you need to go to work, and boy do you need to sit down and do it, and do the job of writing, and you allow that character or that situation to just start growing and start coming, you know, leaving your fingers onto the digital page these days, you know, onto your computer, and then it grows and expands and it takes on life, and you know, there's, of course, and this is every writer's choice. There's a lot of talk about backstory, always, you know, like tell it, you know, where did your character go to school? How, you know, what was his or her mommy like, and all of that. I've never written a backstory in my life, never. But if you ask me to tell me the backstory of one of my characters, I could. I'd kind of be making it up as I went along, but the feelings would be true, because I feel I feel the characters, and I feel like they need to come out, and I feel like they need to be given a voice, and that's just that's what writing is to me. An idea or a character or a situation or an emotion or a feeling that you somehow have to put into the world. And it's hard to articulate, and I feel like I'm talking in circles, but it's almost hard not to, because it's so ephemeral in the beginning. You know, I hope that makes some version of sense. I will go back. I will never go back to the beginning, because that is a death trap. I know what I'll do. I'll go back and rewrite the first 60 pages, and then I'll go back and rewrite the first 60 pages again and again. I'll go back and read a couple of pages and maybe do some cosmetic stuff just to get, you know, just to put myself back into the zone of the story. And then I just start writing, and they may not be good ideas. There may be, my drafts are always 20, 30 pages too long when I finish the first draft, because I'm telling the story to myself. But I forget who it was. I'm going to say Oscar Wilde. I'm going to say some famous writer said, just sit down and start typing your name over and over. Oscar Wilde may have been pre-typewriter, I bet, but you understand the point. Start typing your name. Start doing anything with your fingers, and again, it's like where that comes from and where that next scene comes from. It's there. It is there, and if you put yourself in a position to find it, you will find it. And I might spend a day writing 10 basically bad pages, but there'll be one page of truth in it, and one moment that will move the story forward. And Stephen King talks about this really brilliantly. And I have questions about outlining, and I'm not here to have an outline debate. He's scathing about outlining. If you've ever read his book on writing, great, probably the best book on writing ever written to my mind. But he always says it's what happens next. It's what happens next, what happens next, what happens next. And you know, if I were to reach across the room here and steal your notes from you, there would be a response.
Yes.
Or if I were to kick the camera over and say, I'm done with this interview, there would be a response, right? And then it's what happens next. Do you jump on me and say, give me my notes back, you jerk? Do you, I mean, and it's really that, it's kind of gets, and if you just look at it like that, and you look at it like whatever you made happen, something has to happen next, and it's what happens next, what happens next, what happens next, what happens next. That what happens next will come, and it may not come easily, and there may be a lot of, like I said, bad what happens next before you find the right what happens next. But it'll come, and it's a magical process. I mean, magical in the sense that it's almost unexplainable, and it's why there's so many screenwriting programs and apps and all of these things out there to kind of tell you that they can tell you what happens next, but they can't tell you what happens next. Only you can tell you what happens next. And I look at it as a moment-by-moment process. And I put these characters in a situation, and it's often diabolical and it's often otherworldly, and they've got to get themselves either deeper into it or get the hell out of it. And that's the journey, and it's moment by moment, and it's sort of literally second by second if you think about it. You know, movies move forward in a linear fashion, and it's just it's just tracking that and putting your character, and when it really gets fun is when you put your character in the most difficult. Here, can I tell you a quick anecdote that is probably an illustration that I use about this all the time. When I teach the very first class, I always say, and I make the statistic up depending on how I'm feeling the room. I will say 98% of you will fail, and people go, oh! Right. And I say you'll fail because you'll never finish. You will never finish your script. And it's sad but true. I'm not wrong. I'm pretty darn close, and I've taught hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of students at this point. And not finishing is exactly what most people will do. I've just been teaching a workshop where I've given people 12 weeks to finish a draft that they've been working on for a long time, and the dropout rate is enormous. Mm-hmm. And this is exactly what you said. This is perfectionism, and this is not allowing yourself the ability to fail. And it's a huge mistake. You have to, you know, baseball metaphors get tossed around a lot in the screenwriting trade because they kind of fit in a way. Like if you're batting 300, you're doing great, but that means you're hitting the ball once every 3 times, right? But to go back to this what happens next idea and how and you had said you wake up on Monday morning with your cup of coffee and you've gone to work and you have no idea what needs to happen next in your script. Well, a story I tell about this almost always in my classes was from Beetlejuice, where there's a scene that a lot of people love. Actually, it's become like a lot of people one of their favorite scenes, and the ghost, Barbara and Adam, Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin, they've died. They've driven off a bridge, trying to avoid a dog. Aren't they good people? They tried to avoid the doggy, and they've driven off a bridge and they've drowned, and they're trapped in their house now as ghosts. And they've been given a book about how the handbook for the recently deceased, that they can't figure it out, and they want to go into the afterlife and ask questions about how to be ghosts and how they're supposed to live, live as ghosts, or die as ghosts, whatever. But what Michael, my writing partner Michael McDowell and I had done is we had trapped them so well in their house we had no idea how to get them into the afterlife. We had done a very good job of sticking them there with what felt like no exit. And we had to come up with a way for them to get out of the house. And the dynamic between, you got to understand, Michael was, I'm going to say Harvard educated, if not Harvard, some incredibly prestigious university. I grew up in a trailer park and barely got out of high school. Okay, there was sometimes it was usually playful, but sort of a status issue between us. And the way we'd often work is that I would like vomit out ideas and he would just start shooting them down. And it was always one word: no, 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 no. And we were trying to come up with a way to get them out of the house, Barbara and Adam, the ghosts, get them into the afterlife. And I was coming up with more and more convoluted ideas about how to get them out of the house. And I'm sure trying to bring out my supernatural chops and all that I knew about, you know, metaphysics and blah-de-blah, just to get them out of the house. And every idea I came up with, no, no, no. And my ideas kept getting further and further out and more convoluted. No, no, no. And I finally got really angry with Michael. And I said, Michael, what do you want them to do? Draw an effing door? And I just said it because I thought it was the stupidest idea imaginable. And I was so mad. I said, is that what you want? You want them to draw a door? And he just started laughing. And I started laughing. And we said, yes, that's exactly what they should do, is draw a door. So rather than these incredibly, like this convoluted supernatural nonsense, Adam found a piece of chalk, drew a doorknob, opened it, and went into the afterlife. Simple. But it took all of that convoluted stuff to get there. And that's what will happen when you sit down and you're stuck. You will write and write and write, and you won't think you found it, and you'll know you haven't found it. But if you keep at it and you'll keep writing, there'll finally be that epiphanal moment where you'll go, oh, that's what happens next. And then you will write that, and you will have moved your characters forward one more step in your story, and then the next what happens next is in front of your eyes, and you move forward like that. And sometimes it's literally moving an inch or less than an inch at a time. And sometimes it's running, sometimes it's crawling, sometimes the what happens next happen really quickly, and you have a day where you just go, oh my God, you know, I just wrote 10 great pages, and all they need is just a little sprucing up, and they're there. And some days you will write 10 pages and you will have maybe a quarter of a page that's usable, but you will have moved the story forward that much. And it's a kind of alchemy, a kind of a magic of creation, but it's such a beautiful feeling. It's the best job in the world. When I became a studio executive at Paramount, working most closely with Jeff Katzenberg, it was all of a sudden there was this, as these bizarre trends happen and you don't quite understand where they come from and then why they go away. But all of a sudden it became very important to hire people in development positions who had a Harvard education. And I was working with a couple of them. And they also went to the school of Machiavelli, I guess, and had read and reread The Art of War. And on strategically on that level, they could kill me dead, okay? But I thought about it, and I thought, I've loved movies since I can remember. And while I was terrible in school, I was a terrible student, my mom loved reading, and she taught me a love of reading. So I had that on my side. But what I really had on my side was, if I loved a movie, I loved a movie. I loved it. And I realized pretty quickly that the movie business, it was not a business meant for Harvard grads. And I could read a script and say, this is a movie, and say it with as much confidence as possible, and mean it and believe it. And but I was up against this and my own inferiority complex sometimes about not having been a good student and not having, barely gotten out of high school. It would work on me sometimes. But one day after I'd been completely creamed in a development war with one of these Harvard grads, Jeff Katzenberg took me aside and he said, Larry, you need to learn to be a straight player in a crooked game. I'm not here for you to out-manipulate anyone. You're sitting with me and you're sitting beside me here because when you love something, you love it. And when you read a script and you love it, you're going to make sure that that everyone else loves it too. And that's what I like in you, and that's why you're valuable to me. Stop trying to be a studio executive. Be a guy who can read a script or watch a movie and get excited the way you get excited. And that was a huge shot in the arm of confidence that I took away. And I owe Jeff Katzenberg gratitude for a lot of things that he wouldn't even be aware of. But that was a big one because he told me, just be yourself and use this passion for movies and this love for movies and make that your calling card. Don't try to be a player. You're not good at it. You're horrible at it, which I am because I wear everything on my sleeve. Ask my wife. Yeah. Everyone has pitch nightmare stories, and they're true, but it's really unfair to development people and studio executives to assume that everyone in those meetings is there to basically make your life miserable and say no to you. It's not true. And how you contribute to it as a writer, you come in with an idea that you've actually thought through and that you have some passion for, and that also you need to be willing to listen. It's a conversation, and the control you have of the conversation is you're the one coming in with the idea. You're the one coming in saying, hey, I think this would be a great movie, this would be a great television show, whatever, and you should have thought it through, and you should have prepared well enough to when they say, well, why do you think it's such a great idea, to be able to answer the questions, and you should know enough about your story that you can do it justice in the room. But then, having sat as an executive, I've also been in those meetings where you say to someone, yeah, I get it, but, and they immediately, what but? There is no but. This is the story. You have nothing to say to me. And a defensiveness goes up, and that's a huge mistake. You don't go to the meeting, just write the stupid script. It's a conversation and it's a dialogue, and don't assume that you know more than the person in the room who you're speaking to. Have it as a conversation and be strong and know when you need to dig in your heels, and know that that if people are changing your story in the room so much that you don't even recognize it anymore, which could happen, that you need to say no and say thank you for the meeting and leave. But engage in the conversation. Have a little bit of effing humility, for God's sakes. You know, you've been invited into the room to tell someone a story. Don't assume that they don't have a thought in their head. And there are so many stories, and again, a lot of them are true. And I could tell you nightmare stories about pitches. We could stay here all night, and I could tell you those stories. But I could also tell you great stories with great development people who have given me enough rope to hang myself, then said, but what if this happened or that happened? And they've given me a better idea and a better take. It's a dialogue, it's a conversation, and it's part of the business. And I hate to call it a game, but I will for a moment. It's part of the game. But if you just can't stand the idea of going in and telling a story and someone's going to try to change it, or have an idea, write the script. Don't be a pitch monkey. Be a screenwriter. You write a really, really good screenplay, and the metaphysics of getting a meeting after that are so elusive. Sorry, I'm not, and it's a very sincere question, and it gets asked to me all the time, and I'm going to dance around it a little bit, but again, not seriously, but sincerely. There was a time when I was teaching, and here's something about me as a teacher. I'm a screenwriting teacher who's not a failed screenwriter. I'm actually a successful screenwriter who teaches at the same time. Oh God, that was cheap. I apologize. But I stopped teaching at one point because I really had an ethical dilemma. Because I thought the real reason people were taking my classes is to say to me, how do you get a movie made? You've gotten movies made. You've gotten through the door. How do I get through the door? And I could have been teaching anything. I could be teaching story analysis, screenplay structure, dialogue, anything. And I thought the real reason that people were there was to ask me, Larry Wilson, how do I get a pitch meeting? How do I get a movie made? How do I get through the door? And I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to say, and I felt like I was like part of this false hope machine. And I didn't like it, and I didn't like the way it made me feel. And I stopped teaching. And the thing that brought me back to teaching, and where I could do it again, where a question like that, which I wish I had a great answer. Look, I've been blessed by the fact that unexpected doors open for me my entire life after I moved to Hollywood. I was working in a department store stocking makeup because I'd cleaned my mother's beauty shop for years, and I knew how to stock makeup. And the woman who loved the way I stocked her makeup said, oh, so you want to be in like the entertainment business? Well, you should do cue cards. And she introduced me to a man named Barney McNulty. And the next thing I knew was I was doing cue cards on all the biggest television shows of the time. A door opened. I can't explain why that happened, why I went in stocking makeup and that door opened. Luck and all of that, it's too complex of a question. But I knew it was what people were asking. I hope this is making sense. I knew it was what people were asking me, really. How do I get through the door? How do I get my script read by someone that matters? Well, there's some easy pat answers to that. They're not pat, but you know, there's contests, there's pitch orgies, there's all the these millions of things out there that you need to be careful about what you submit to. But there's all those ways, but there is no answer to the question. And I got I had an ethical dilemma about it. I did not want to be trafficking in false hope and that I had some magical answer. So the first part of the answer is write a really great script. But the reason I was able to come back to teaching was the digital revolution. And the fact that you could make a movie, holding up my cell phone, ladies and gentlemen, you can make a movie on your cell phone now. You can make a movie for $1,000. There is no excuse for you not to make a movie anymore. And knowing that I could go in and help people write a great screenplay, and if no one would give them the time of day, they could figure out how to write a great screenplay that they could shoot for $500 on their iPhone, inspired me to come back to teaching. And the answer is, there is no answer. The answer is you put yourself in every possible place, conceivable place you can think of without getting ripped off by sham screenplay contests and all that. You put yourself in every conceivable place you can think of. You submit your script anywhere you possibly can. You talk to anyone who you think might be able to help you, and maybe that door will open for you. But if none of that works, make your own movie. sorry, you know, and it's a great place to be, but it's a scary place for people to be. When I started in the business a billion years ago, making a movie was expensive. Just a film stock could stop you from making a movie. The cost of printing and developing and dailies and all of that could stop you from making a movie. That wasn't that people didn't do it, but it was incredibly difficult. But the digital revolution, if you can't get your stuff seen, if you can't get a pitch meeting, shoot a film. Shoot a 10-minute short and post it on YouTube. Take your career and your life into your own hands and stop waiting for these gatekeepers to give you permission to be a filmmaker. And you can, at the same time, you're trying to get through that door and you're trying to get that pitch meeting and you're trying to get that huge movie off the ground. Do all of that, but be making your iPhone movie. And it's an answer that people don't want to hear.
Why? Why do you think they don't want to hear it?
Because it puts all the responsibility on them. It makes them have to make a movie. It makes them have to do something in public and perhaps fail. It makes them have to go to their mother and say, "Can I have $1,000, Mom?" Why? Well, I want to make a movie. If you think I'm going to spend $1,000, I mean, you know, it just puts all the responsibility back on you as a screenwriter and a filmmaker, and people hate that. They want that ticket that is going to open that door, and I wish I had an answer. I have struggled with that question for decades of teaching. And I don't know why these doors open for me. I don't know. I know I was persistent. I was idiotically persistent. I literally was that doofus who went around to the guard gates at studios and said, "I want to make a movie. How do I make a movie, sir?" You know, to a gate guard. I mean, I literally did that because I was so dumb. I didn't know any better. But one of them finally said to me, "Well, son, what do you do?" "Well, I read." "Well, then become a script reader." "How do I do that?" "Well, ask someone." And I got a job $75 a week reading scripts, and it was, and then I got it, you know, and then I was like working, you know, at a cosmetic counter in a May company, and I, you know, I mean, it's just stupid stuff that's the way life works or doesn't work for you. But the whole landscape has changed, where anyone can make a movie now. What that means is there will be millions of bad movies, but make sure yours is a good one. And, you know, and oh God, here, build it and they will come, or whatever that is. So that's the best answer I can give. And it's not, I wish, question asker, I could give you a better answer, but it's the only answer I can honestly give you because I don't know. I will, if contractually obliged to doing a beat sheet or an outline, I will do it. And sometimes you are. And what usually happens is you spend all this time on this beat sheet and this outline, and it's the most bastardized thing in the world because it's not a script, it's not a story, it's kind of this thing that exists halfway between a script and a story. And I will do it if contractually obliged to. I'll do an outline, and I'll do a very detailed outline, and I'll do it always to the best of my abilities. I won't slum, but I'll do it and I'll hand it in, and the producers will go, "We love this outline. This is a great outline. Now go write the script." And you'll go write the script, and you'll have your outline, and you'll say, "Okay, here's what the outline is telling me," and you'll start writing, and it will immediately start changing, and better ideas will emerge. And the next thing you know, the outline is completely out the window, and you've written a script, and you'll turn it in, and the producers will go, "We love this. This is just like the outline," and everyone's forgotten the outline. And I know, again, my beat sheet is, obviously you kind of know the beginning. You know, you're putting your characters, and you feel these characters, and you put them in this situation that they're going to have to fight for their lives to get out of. I kind of know what the end is going to be, kind of, sort of. and then it's the great unknown. And to do that in a beat sheet, to me, is just taking all the fun out of it. So don't listen to me. Listen to all the other people out there who say outline, beat sheets. Please, if that's what you need to do. And there's great writers who do that. Of course they do that. But, and sometimes when you're collaborating, it becomes more necessary because you're sending stuff back and forth. But for me, they don't work for me. And anytime I do them, everything starts changing anyway so much that they quickly become irrelevant.
Why don't they work for you?
Because I'm a storyteller, and the stories emerge from someplace that is beat sheet proof. That's just me. I mean, I don't know what, I mean, they just come from somewhere else. And if I tell it all in a quote unquote beat sheet, it's like why would I do that to myself? Why would I take all the fun out of discovering it and put it in this thing that's just kind of bullet points? But that's me, and that's the idiosyncratic part of me. But I'm in good company. Stephen King, my favorite writer. Ask him about beat sheets. But you know, help me, the writer who wrote Game of Thrones, the books.
George R.R. Martin.
Thank you. He said it the best of anyone. He said there are, now you would think, particularly if you've read the Game of Thrones books, that those things are outlined completely. They're so intricate. They're so full of plot and character, and this needs to overlap, and this needs to, you know, I mean, they're extremely intricate stories. He doesn't outline. And what he says about it is, and I think it's such a great quote, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but it's the essence of it. There are architects and there are gardeners. An architect will need that blueprint to build what it is they're going to build. He said, I'm a gardener. I plant a seed and I tend it and nurse it and I watch it grow. And there are architects who will do that beat sheet and will do it brilliantly, so I'm not knocking it. And then there are gardeners, and I guess I'm a gardener. I just kind of let the idea sit there, and I tend it, and I take good care of it, and make sure it gets all the water and sun, and then I watch it grow.